Very good evening to you once again. While President Cyril Ramaphosa has been commended for opening up the process and appointing a panel to help appoint a new NPA boss, at least one analyst believes Ramaphosa should have gone a step further by opening up next week's interviews to members of the public. Now, Lawson Naidu of the Centre for the Advancement of the South African Constitution says not holding open interviews is a missed opportunity. He says South Africans need to be able to see who these candidates are and scrutinise them. Now, this to be able to really ensure the right person is being appointed as the top prosecutor in the land. Now, Naidu also expresses concern about some of the 12 shortlisted names.
The shortlist is of 12 candidates, many of them from within the NPA. And I think given the fractious nature of the NPA and the deep divisions within that institution, I think it's questionable as to whether someone who comes from within the NPA would be suitable to head the organization.
Now, the Presidency has confirmed that 12 candidates have been shortlisted for the position of the National Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, the list was compiled by an advisory panel led by the Energy Minister Jeff Radebe, appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The head of the National Prosecuting Authority position became available when the Constitutional Court ruled in August that Shaun Abrahams' appointment was invalid and set aside. Now, the interviews of the NDPP candidates will not be open to the public. And to discuss this further, I'm joined on the line by constitutional law expert and political analyst, Professor Shadrack Gutto. Prof. Gutto, very good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time this Saturday evening. Of course, many could argue that perhaps, well, correctly so, that the National Prosecuting Authority in South Africa has been in shambles and even captured. If we look at the shortlisted names, what kind of candidate is needed to restore the credibility of this institution?
Thank you very much, and to the listeners of SABC FM. And I would like to say at this point that the National Prosecuting Authority and the National Prosecuting Director is so central in the justice system in South Africa, especially the criminal justice system. It has to be a person who can perform his or her duties without fear or favor. It's a person who can stop prosecutions from proceeding. And we saw that in the past when the then acting National Prosecuting Authority actually did indicate that they shouldn't prosecute the former president, Jacob Zuma, and that was wrong in my view and in the view of the public.
So what kind of candidate do you think is needed?
A person of integrity and professional qualifications. In other words, there must be people who are properly qualified in law and legal practice. And I think those are the fundamental areas, but people occupying those positions, which are supposed to be independent of the executive, of the legislature, of anybody, really is a difficult task to get such a person. And the first time we have it now going into public is to say it is a welcome development to say that the public should make their comments on the appointees.
Look, as the public makes those comments, I think, let's just go back very slightly. Now, recent developments, for example, around the supposed sex tape involving the acting National Director of Public Prosecutions, Silas Ramaite. Could this be something that could disqualify someone like him? If we look at what the president said just a few moments ago, he spoke about someone with integrity and someone who cannot be captured. Could this disqualify someone like him?
I think that it depends on whether or not he has been nominated but the president can also consider him. But what I would like to say here is that we need a public hearing, like we have heard in the appointment of people in certain public offices, like those in Chapter 9 institutions and so on, who are really interviewed in public. So the public can make comments on their suitability or not suitability. So I think that process should be open to public participation, because that office has been going under serious crisis over the many years, and people do not have a trust in the justice system because of the office of the National Prosecuting Authority, and we need to restore that.
Well, certainly I think all of that would need to go with the integrity, I guess, of the individual who is appointed into that position. Prof, there's something I want to talk about as well. You know, the assertion that has been coming across quite prominently is that there seems to be a lot of disappointment that more women have not been shortlisted. Yes, of course, we've got the likes of Glynis Breitenbach, who's a DA MP, and Andrea Johnson, who we saw was Gerrie Nell's co-prosecutor in the state's case against convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius. Is this the relevant time to be having a discussion about whether it is the right time for a woman to lead the prosecuting authority in this country, or should we be more focused on somebody who is capable of doing the job and restoring that integrity?
I think you have pointed out to something very important, that we do have under Section 1 of the Constitution, there's constitutional values, non-sexism, and we do have other provisions in the Constitution which I don't want to go into because people will, ordinary persons will not be able to understand them. But I would like to say that we need to have a rule in the country where in each position of public office, we need to have a balance between men and women. And because they're capable women who can take those positions, and we have precedents on women overperforming men in like the office of the public prosecutor and Advocate Tulima Donsela, and now under a new woman, we do have women who have led the Independent Electoral Commission in countries like Ethiopia. We now have a president there who is a woman, and we need to be able to show ourselves that non-sexism is not just a
lip
sound
service,
bite, but it is real.
Professor Shadrack Gutto, constitutional law expert, talking to us about the shortlisted names for the NPA top position. Let's take a short